name's Janet Smith. I work at the Mineral County Health Department. I've been working with families and children for about 30 years now. I'm old. And I've been a Head Start classroom teacher, a Head Start home visitor, and a Parents as Teachers home visitor. And most recently now I'm a doula as well with the Mineral County Health Department. So that's a little bit about me, but mostly I wanted to come here to talk about what we do at the Health Department in Mineral County. If you don't know where that is, Superior is the county seat, and it's about 60 miles west of Missoula. Our county covers about 100 miles from the top of the pass at Idaho all the way down to Alberton. So we're a big county, but with not very many services. Most people have to drive to either Plains or Missoula to get care if they're pregnant or postnatal care as well, prenatal care. There's no childbirth education in Mineral County, or there was no childbirth education. So we, as a health department, looked at the gaps that we had in services, and since that was a big one, we decided to train 3 of our home visitors as doulas. So we were lucky enough to all have grant funding to do that, so we all got trained as doulas. Okay, so anyway, where was I? So anyways, we all got trained as doulas, all 3 of our home visitors, and we were already CLCs. So now we feel like we're able to offer another service to our families in the county with that. And I don't know what else I was going to say about it, but because I'm looking at my notes here. But if you guys don't have doulas in your health department, we are so happy, like Jennifer said, to talk with you about how to add that service to your health department or to whatever organization you work with. We're fully grant funded, so we have found ways to be able to do that. And if you're not already excited about having a doula on staff, you will be when we're done.
Thank you each for that enthusiasm. I love this. Okay, so we're going to start out with just that basic kind of elevator question. You're somewhere in a non-professional setting, a fabulous, I don't know, Thanksgiving party. I don't know. And somebody who is asking you what you do, and what is your broad kind of lay approach to explaining the provision of doula care? I'll start with you, Cerise.
Awesome, thank you. Gosh, that's a hard. It's an easy question and a hard question. So what I do is support people in their most human expression of their humanity in really transitional times in their lives. And do that in lots of different ways, whether I'm supporting them in their birth or in adjustment with their baby or sitting with them when they're learning to make milk and feed their babies, or when they're struggling with conception. So as a doula, I am someone who makes space for that humanity and that transition and supports people. And I would say if I was saying that to somebody at Thanksgiving, they probably still wouldn't have any idea of what I did. I'm not a midwife. I don't deliver babies. I work alongside the other people who care for that person in those moments.
We'll just chime in. Thank you for including the what you don't do, because I think oftentimes that's just as important. I invite the other 2 as well. Think about that aspect. What do you do and what don't you do? Thanks, Cerise.
I would never be at a fancy Thanksgiving party, but I might be in an elevator, so I'll pretend.
I'm real tired.
So, I'll pretend like I'm explaining it to my dad, who still has a hard time understanding what I do. So, most of us who work with Postpartum Resource Group, and we're in the Flathead Valley, I forgot to say that. So we serve from right above Polson, all the way up to like Fortine. I think the longest drive I've done is 2 hours one way. And Flathead is not as much of a healthcare desert as a lot of Montana is, so we are blessed with that. But I would say when I had my son, I had to be dropped off at the OB's office in a tricky way by my husband and a friend because I was losing my mind and didn't realize it and had postpartum depression and would not admit it. I had wanted a baby so long. And so I'd say someone like me who feels very overwhelmed or depressed or their OCD is off the charts, intrusive thoughts that will not go away. Sometimes they need extra help. So they call us, and one of us postpartum doulas will come, and the first meeting we just sit with them and say, tell us what's going on. We do birth story processing as well, so what did you think this was going to look like versus what did it look like? Do we need to know something to communicate to the providers if there was a gap there? We do dishes if we need light housework, which we do have to make that line very clear. I have been on the front line of making those boundaries because we're very much figuring it out as we go. So I'll call my boss and say, okay, I'm at a house with 7 children and she's wanting me to do all of their laundry, feed the children, and she and her husband want to leave. Help me. So it's very fluid. But we are that middleman that tell me what's going on and I will find you and connect you with someone who can do it better than us. And then that's kind of the end. We have 3 visits. We do what we can. A lot of times we will contact parents as teachers, or we have a list of counselors in the area and which ones accept Medicaid, things like that. And then I'm going to say in my bereavement work, I come alongside families who've experienced miscarriage, stillbirth, termination for medical reasons, or infant loss at any point in that time. And the postpartum resource group, we don't do pre-birth, but we are willing to be connected with a mom who they already know is at risk. So a mom who maybe had a mood disorder in a previous pregnancy or who is already suffering depression, they'll let us know, hey, this is coming, and we can be in communication with the provider, so it's that continuum of care afterwards. Is that
Okay. Sorry. Okay, can you hear me? All right. So for an elevator speech, I would say that the person is probably going to be pressing the open door. Let me out of here. I didn't want all this. Oh, she won't stop talking. But if I had to be very clear and concise, I would say support person and advocate. Support the person before the birth, during the birth, after the birth as needed, and advocate for the person with the healthcare team, which I am not a part of, as no. That's my no there. I'm not a clinician. I don't deliver babies. I don't even touch the baby until you let me hold it, but I'll be waiting there so that I can. So that's my favorite thing. But no, it's not really, but it is. So I'm there to support you throughout your birth, especially with comfort care, with pain management, well, not management, but pain, help with pain. Don't say the word pain, though, but I'm saying it to you, but don't say that word to a pregnant person. Say sensation. And as a doula, my goal is to provide a positive birthing experience to the best of my ability as I can help with that. So,
thank you. Thanks each for that. I love it. I think one of the things about having this doula panel and having, a a variety of folks like serving in different ways and in different settings up here is like just listening to that, right? I mean, everyone can see the different ways that they are conceiving of one question. You know, we're asking, how are you providing doula care? And we've got all of this diversity, right? And so as we're in this as a community and continuing to learn how to integrate doula care into our systems, thinking about like, wow, this is a really diverse and broad term right now, and we're as a community continuing to learn more specific language and really hone in on that. And I just like hearing each of you respond to that really drove that home of like, all right, it's so cool to be in that learning phase of like, all right, how are we learning to use this? How are we learning more specific language? And to be able to be really clear about what we want in our system, what we want in our own care, what we want to advocate for our patients and clients. So thanks for that, guys. I would love it if each of you could tell me a little bit about the population that you're serving right now, and just kind of describe some of the ways that you are getting clients or patients, different things that, aspects of your population that you're serving that you think are unique.
Okay, so first of all, the population that we serve with this kind of work is our 0 to 5 population at the health department. What else did you want to know? Okay, no, it's okay. So we start, if we're going to serve somebody as a doula, usually it comes to us through our Parents as Teachers program, which is our home visiting program. And a lot of times people will come up with pregnancy and say, what's this doula thing that you do? And so we talk about that. We talk about the advantages of having that, and we've had over 25 clients now since 2021, since we were trained, just doula clients that we've got to attend during birth. So that's pretty exciting for us as a program. And also, another thing that's really cool about it is that if the people came to us and they were pregnant but they weren't in our home visiting program, a lot of them sign up during that program, and then we get to keep them for up to 5 years if they want to stay with us, and most people do, because as Heather talked about yesterday, if you were here, it's a really valuable program, and there's just so many advantages to having someone come to your house once a month or twice a month or even once a week if you want, and talk to you about your child, because what's more fun to talk about than your child, right? So, and then we just sit there and listen, and then, if you want suggestions, we give them. But, so our 0 to 5 grant funded all of this, and we're so thankful to Headwaters for that. But that's kind of how we get clients, is through our home visiting program. And then also we have a communications person on staff who does great work with social media, so people find out about us that way. We have school nursing, we have immunizations, we have, I don't know what else, childhood immunizations. So people hear about our doula program that way too, WIC. So that's, and then if you need a CLC, we have that service available too, and sometimes that helps us bring clients in as well. So.
So, I think there's a bit of a disparity with us between what our goal is for our population to be and what our population is so far. We want to be available to anyone of any economic status, race, ethnicity, family makeup, but we tend to have less clients who are in the upper economic status, because a lot of times they seek private pay help, or it's still being destigmatized everywhere, right? So if you're a family that's already struggling, and I'm quoting here, not making an assumption, one of my clients said, well, yeah, if we're already needing help with A, B, and C, it's not that hard to say we need help with D then. Whereas we're fighting against, no, we're fine, we're happy family, everything's great. So we're working on it. And I feel like, I don't know if the clients I personally am assigned are a good indicator, because if it's just the clients I'm assigned, it's a lot of lower income, struggling already in the system somehow, substance abuse, having a hard time with food instability. So that, I don't know if they have just decided that's my niche, or if that's kind of what it is across the board. Yeah, so we have had clients everywhere. We're trying to figure out right now how to help homeless clients. We just got an office space, so that's a place that we can meet with them. So we're trying to figure out the homeless community and the queer community. And I'm using the word in our literature. We're trying to figure out better ways to reach out to those communities as well. But it's kind of anyone. However, the fact that you have to have a referral from some sort of provider does make it a little bit more difficult, because someone can't just walk in off the street and say, I need help with this. If they do, we have to say, okay, then you need to go see someone to be recommended.
Jessica, just you may have already said this, but where do you all get most of your referrals from?
Great question. So that is part of what we're learning how to do. We have posters up in OB's offices, pediatricians' offices, therapist's office. I put one up in the parole office at my kid's school. So we're trying to get it everywhere out there, because even if it's an older sibling at the school whose mom sees the poster and has just had a baby and needs the help, and if they contact us directly, we can say, do you have a doctor? Do you have someone like that? Yeah, so that's our population.
Okay, let me remember the question. Population I serve, is that, and I'll say I'm a doula in solo practice. So that means I'm not funded by grants. I don't work for any health system or any provider group. And so my clients, people who find me through a variety of ways. They find me on their own, say like doing a Google search. They may be people, lots of clients come to me through word of mouth or through referrals from various providers in the community, from family medicine providers to midwives to OBs to lactation consultants, Head Start, people who are working in Head Start. So I have a kind of a wide variety of people who might hear, hey, you should get in touch with a doula in some way and talk to them. Because the largest segment of the people that I serve are private pay, but I serve a wide variety of economic need through sliding scale and pro bono services. And those pro bono services are financed either through just a percentage of the work that I do or through donation from people who makes that work possible. There was more maybe I wanted to say. Do you have more leading questions, Stephanie?
I mean, maybe even given the longevity of your work in doula care, talk a little, has your population changed over time? Or is that remained fairly consistent? I'd be curious about that.
Yeah, I think it's been pretty consistent over time. You know, there's more and more people now, even though, we might talk about this later, but even though in Montana there's no mandate for third-party reimbursement for doula care, there are more people who work for systems or who have health coverage that will that does have a doula benefit. So I'm getting more clients who are saying like, hey, my employer actually has me in a program and they'll provide up to X amount of dollars for doula care. And so we're going to use that. Lots of folks who access HSA or FSA funds to access my care. Clients who may have Medicaid but are able, through a combination of sliding scale or gifts from other people, to pay for services. So it has been pretty consistent over time. Yeah.
All right, I think each one of you kind of wove into this, and you really answered it first, but I do want to get to the nitty-gritty. Oh, yes? I was like, I forgot you guys were there.
I don't want to interrupt the panel, but I was curious, it sounds like most of you are working directly with service populations, but do most doulas also interact with the other aspects of family, like if there's a father or parents with secondary caregivers?
That's a,
What about that population?
that's a great question. Okay, hold tight with that. We're going to wrap up this financial part, and then we're going to go to the other supportive services question. Yeah. So you, Cerise, you talked a little bit about, your private pay and then also sliding scale and pro bono fees. And then Jessica, could you talk a little bit about what's the financial backing of PPRG? How do you do your work?
TRG,
Oh,
by the way, but that's okay. So this is the fun part for me. We are completely fundraiser and grant based. So none of our postpartum doulas are paid. They will pay for, through the fundraisers and grants, they will pay for a person to be trained as a postpartum doula, and in exchange for that, you give 1 year of volunteer service. And if you heard my spiel yesterday by the poster board, you'll hear me say it again. I just happen to be the old fogey that they can't get rid of. So I'm going into my 4th year of no pay. But that's one of the issues that we have with doula turnaround, is that it requires a lot, and to ask someone to continue to do that for no financial reimbursement. We can get our gas reimbursed if it's far away, but we have 2 main fundraisers. One is a run, like a 5K, 10K race, and you have those like really serious people who come from other places to run the race. And then you have a bunch of moms pushing strollers, and so we have that, and then we do I don't even know what it's called. It's like a big gala. Thank you. Pinup pageant. And women from the community can participate in it, and there's a winner and there's baskets. But that's where we get our main funding. We have a couple of board members who are paid because that's their full-time job. But that has been one of the main issues that we've had is, we would love to be able to send someone to Eureka or to Big Arm, but we just don't have those
just volunteer based at this point. Thank you for that. Just so everyone is not wondering how are they doing this, I want to make that abundantly clear, okay? Just keep that in mind. This is a huge piece of the puzzle. So you talked a little bit about some of the funding streams. Just talk a little bit about how you all are doing that at the Public Health Department, just briefly.
Okay, well, when we got the Headwaters grant, we did a lot of talking to community members, and what came out of it, what the community wanted was parent education, or education around parenting. So we took that grant, and it's over 5 years, and I think this is actually our last year of having it. But we looked at gaps in services, and like I said, postpartum, perinatal, birthing support, all of that was something that we saw a gap in the 0 to 5 community. So we decided to address that by sending 3 of us to doula school, doula training. But So
Doula
Doula
school a lot,
the
actually.
School of Doula.
Doula.
It was kind of fun though because we went right before the pandemic, and all three of us went to different places to have our training. And so when we came back, we'd been trained by different people. So we all had a little different things to talk about and ways to take a deep dive into it to figure out how to provide that care to families in Mineral County. But we mostly used our Headwaters funding for that, but we also have another funding stream called SUD, Substance Use Disorder, and we use that for some of our doula care if that's something that is appropriate. So those are mostly our funding streams.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you. For sure, buddy.
I was just thinking talking about how clients access me, but for people who are doulas maybe are curious, like, how do you survive in your own life? How is that job sustainable? I just want to say, like, I am really fortunate that I actually have an additional job that I work on the side that's incredibly flexible, that provides health insurance for me and some benefits, and that I also have a partner who is a full partner in raising our children and was able to support that. And as we continue to talk about this and talk about sustainable doula practice, acknowledge that it takes a lot to sustain a doula in that practice. And just to say that, like, it takes a lot in addition to sustain me in this work.
Thank you. Thank you for being so clear. I know that sometimes money can feel sticky or weird and different things, but like being crystal clear about how you all are doing this, like, it's so helpful for the people in this room that would like to go ahead and, you know, try and replicate some of these systems as well. So, yeah, thank you.
I just wanted to say one more thing too about fees and whatnot. We'll take anybody as a doula client, and it's completely free because we have that funding. So we're also kind of wondering what we're going to do when the funding runs out as far as being able to provide free services, because we would never charge. But so we're hoping for some kind of Medicaid reimbursement sometime down the line, and I like those ideas about fundraisers too. So I'll take those back with me.
Thank you. Awesome. Good sharing in the panel. Okay, so let's talk a little bit. We're going to jump into what you were thinking about, those accompanying services. Like, what are some more of those pieces of the puzzle? So we've talked a little bit about you're a full spectrum doula. You are providing care during that birth and then afterwards as well, what are some of those accompanying services, and thinking about the family or the support system of the birthing person and how you're also holding them in some of that? Can we talk a little bit about that to get to what you wanted?
Hope I don't get in trouble for this. I might get fired from my volunteer job.
Don't get fired. It's not worth it.
That's okay. I have my other volunteer job to fall back on.
Yeah.
So we are still very much figuring this out at Postpartum Resource Group, because since we provide a need for moms dealing with postpartum mood disorders, we obviously, we encourage, if your partner, husband, wife, girlfriend, boyfriend, dad, mom of the parent want to come and be there while we are there, and we can all talk about it together, great, but that's the birthing person's choice who is there. And we can leave, we have some materials that we leave. My husband wrote just a little 2-page thing about what it's like being married to someone with postpartum depression. So I get to be famous for my mental health problems. But so I bring that with me as well, just to leave with them. And then he also wrote something for the dad perspective of loss. We've tried to start a man support group, and it has just not worked out. So unless the birthing person invites their support community into those 3 doula meetings, there's not much we can do. And if like a grandma reaches out to us, we can't engage with that grandparent without permission from the mom, without the mom being there. So we don't offer, we have to do what we can, and that's what we can do is the moms.
That's enough.
Anyway, so I wouldn't have noticed. Yeah, in terms of additional services, I think this is such an interesting question. Like, I support the family unit, whatever that family unit happens to be. And primarily I'm working at the request of the pregnant, birthing, post-birth, or post-end of pregnancy person. But support that whole unit. So sometimes I'll say, like, if there's a partner, often if I'm at a birth, not always, often I'm supporting both parents in that birth, and sometimes it's more to the non-birthing partner who receives that support. When I work with people postpartum and continue to visit them after, a lot of times it's support and listening to the non-birthing parent, and talking them through their challenges and what they're experiencing. But I would say it's more frequent that it would be toward the person who gave birth because they are having like the primary physical and emotional struggles that they can express. I don't know if this question encompasses like other things that you do. Like, what I do is a whole range of things, from being with people in their homes, or if they're houseless, meeting them somewhere else, to accompanying people to provider appointments, to just talking with people on the phone or listening to like their voice recordings that they made at 2 a.m. that they wanted to like just have a place to dump, to helping people work through how do they access other services, to providing lots of referrals, to continuing to partner when they give permission with their additional lactation support, with their additional mental health support, with their health provider, to continue to like see that person as a whole person, and kind of work as a unit to support them.
Thank you.
Say one more thing real fast. We will, if there is a diagnosis, we will leave information with the support people if we have permission. So we will say like, hey, husband, here's what postpartum OCD looks like. Here is what it looks like to support. So we will leave the information with any supporting person that the mother allows, so they at least have something to go with.
So as far as home visiting goes, and as it relates to birthing support, we always try to draw the fathers in or the partner in. That's why we do visits in the evening if the other person is working during the day, or whenever it's convenient, to try to get the whole family involved in the process. Of course, the partner is encouraged to attend birth education classes with the birthing person, and we try to do wraparound support for the whole family. So that's why we have a Family Connections Collaborative that we formed. But yeah, mostly it ends up being the birthing persons, but we do try to draw everybody in, and we've tried that dad's group before too. Usually like 2 dads will show up, yay! And then they're like, oh, this is really awkward. So, but we keep trying. We don't give
Awesome.
up.
I like the can do. All right. Let's see. Could you all talk a little bit about the training that you received in order to provide this type of care?
So I did my initial doula training with Doula International. Doula used to stand for Doulas of North America, but now it's kind of like how KFC is just KFC now. It's just Doula. because it's an international organization. But I did that training at a time when there wasn't like online training that you could do. You had to do it in person, and that training actually found me. I did not find it. I won it in a raffle. And it happened to be going on in Missoula. And I went to it with my doula. So did that training, realized I had been really interested in postpartum care, and realized that birth was something that I could see myself doing and caring for people in that full story arc, through birth and beyond. And so I'm a nerd. I've done a lot of trainings. I like trainings. So I trained as a postpartum doula also with Doula. I did lactation counselor training, so I'm a certified lactation counselor. I also offer childbirth education, so for a while I was certified for childbirth education. I'm doing more certification now. And I've trained with a lot of different organizations to get different aspects or different perspectives on care for this sort of story arc of people's lives, and trying to pursue trainings from organizations that might be queer-led or BIPOC-led or have a perspective on grief and loss, or a perspective on like caring for people who are struggling with conception. I've done trainings with PSI. So a whole lot of trainings kind of all the time, because trainings are kind of fun. And just trying to keep that going to always broaden my perspective, while at the same time recognizing that like you learn by doing it and you learn from people. And so that's always the best training, is to get to know more about the people that I'm working with and learn from them.
Love it. If you would like a review on trainings, you know who to ask. Wealth of information.
I have to go after that. I am much less educated, but I actually did not start in postpartum work. So after my son passed away in 2015, I actually had to move to California to have him, because we didn't have, speaking of medical access, we didn't have a hospital up here that could deal with his medical issues. And when I came back home, there was nothing. I couldn't find a group. I didn't know anybody else. Through the grace of God, our pastor connected us with a family who lost their son 5 weeks after us, and she became my lifeline. And both of us say that we would have gone crazy independently without each other. And so that put in this deep-rooted fire in me of this cannot continue. Because it is so much more common than we realize. 1 in 4 pregnancies end. And so I got trained through stillbirthday doulas, it's a bereavement-specific doula training. So it counts as a regular doula as well, so I can attend live births. But a majority of the training was on different diagnoses, how to come alongside doctors, families. So that was my first training. And then my OB for my third baby, someone's having fun in there. My OB for my third baby, Janice Sund, who started Postpartum Resource Group, said, "Hey, I've got this thing going on. Would you be interested?" And I was like, heck yes. And I loved the free aspect, because my husband and I are lower middle class. Like, we wouldn't have been able to afford a postpartum doula, a bereavement doula. So when I signed up with them, I was already technically doula certified, but I did specific postpartum training through Childbirth International. So that is my training. And then there was a loss summit. When was that? May or something of this year through PSI. So I'm also a nerd. So I read a lot, but I have not been part of all those trainings. And I was trained during COVID, so it was really difficult to find any in-person hours or to find even any babies below 6 weeks that I could have any practice with, because you weren't allowed to do that. So it actually took, I finished everything except for the in-person stuff and just was like, please, someone let me hold your baby, standing outside of places. Hi, do you need help? No, I didn't really do that. But yeah, so that COVID definitely created an issue for that. But.
Okay, so let me start out by saying I've always been, as a person, my own self, obsessed with pregnancy, childbirth, lactation, and all the things that go along with it. In fact, I was so obsessed with it that I had 5 babies myself, just so I could keep experiencing it. And that's a terrible reason to have a child, isn't it? But anyway, why did you have so many kids? Because I love being pregnant. But when this idea came up about having a gap in services, I said, we should all be doulas, we should be doulas. And they're like, oh, geez, okay, Janet. But anyway, the more we talked about it, the more that we decided that we needed to have doulas on staff. And also I should mention that anytime a friend of mine has had a baby, I'm always, do you want me to come and help you? I'll come. And so I've attended births on my own before I even went to doula training. But we all got trained, like you said, at DONA international trainings, and before that we had CLC trainings. So that's pretty much where we come from. And anytime a training comes up, we're all training junkies as well. So, we need to do that, yeah. So we'll do any training that we can to advance our skills and to learn about other populations as well. So.
Yeah. A little bit about the CHW training, please.
Yeah, community health worker. So I recently took that training and finished that certification, and then we've got 3 other people in the office that are also taking it too. And I think that the thing that it mostly did for me was made me more aware of resources that we have in our community, how to access those resources, how to find ways to refer people, and how to dig up resources in surrounding communities as well. And I'm not sure if it's going to help us be more Medicaid ready, but we're hoping that it will do something like that for us as well.
Yeah, thank you. You're not alone in that hope. And just so to bring this space, or just to bring this into the room, community health workers are general kind of support in terms of education, like very similar to a lot of what a doula would do, but for a broader population. A lot of times they've also been specified in like chronic health conditions. I'm sure many of you are familiar with them. Community health representatives or something else that's very similar, right? So in our world where a lot of decisions about care are driven by what gets paid for, we've seen a couple of different entities here in the state and then other states as well really advancing this idea of community health worker certification. Those with the community health worker certification also being able to provide doula care if they have also accessed that kind of a training, right? So thinking about this in terms of, not all community health workers are doulas and not all doulas are community health workers, but we need a diversity of solutions in order to be able to increase access to this care. And if CHW, if community health worker becomes a billable service under Medicaid or other private pay insurance options, there are many people in the state who are exploring how do we push that pay lever, right? How do we make it so that individuals can, if they choose to get that cross training, be able to do that? Again, a diversity of solutions, certainly not a silver bullet, and does come with a couple of different nuances. And I kind of want to talk a little bit about that. And one of the things that you guys talked about was being advocates. And we use words like empowerment and those different things. And just talk a little bit about that aspect of the services that you provide. How are you helping to empower the people that you serve? How are you helping them in moments where maybe they don't feel like their voice is being heard? And then also, how does where you're employed impact that? Hard question, but it cuts to the core. Cerise? Yeah.
Okay, I feel like we just sort of like peeled the lid off of
Yes,
a
we did.
really important discussion. So I'll start with the community health worker piece just a little bit, and this has been a discussion. Can I talk about the Doula Collaborative really quick? I'll just throw out the name.
Let's do it.
The Montana Doula Collaborative, which I think we'll talk about a little bit late at the end of this, but this is a statewide organization to represent and advance sustainable doula practice and also third-party reimbursement for doulas in Montana. We wrestled with this idea of community health workers really recently and had to really clarify and think about what's different about doulas. So I just want to say a little bit about that, because the way we saw it is not that community health workers aren't amazing and unimportant, and there's some community health worker doulas like sitting right over here who are doing incredible work. Doulas, we were not seeing ourselves as frontline public health workers, and I think as people who work for the pregnant or birthing or postpartum person, that is the person who we work for and who we represent and who we advocate for. That it's important to maintain doula work in that space of working directly for the client, which does not mean that you can't be a doula that is employed in a health system, or you can't be a doula who is also a CHW, but that we also need to maintain the space of doulas as being independent and working directly for people. And so how I see that advocacy is I am the person in the room who is often the most focused on that person as a human being. And I advocate for them as a human, not for them as a patient, not for them in one aspect of their care or another aspect of their care. I see the full spectrum of them in their lives, maybe in their homes, in their day-to-day interactions, in how they interact with other people in their home, in how they interact with their babies and their children. And so my advocacy is focused on them hearing their voice and making space for that voice to be heard in other spaces. Then I'm going to stop.
Awesome. Thank you, Cerise.
So I can do the advocating part. The second part was who you were employed.
I think just go with the
skip
advocating
that.
part,
Okay. I love the word advocate. So, just really quickly, my son's pediatrician is who diagnosed my postpartum depression, because my son was a nightmare, and he actually called and spoke to my husband, and my husband had no clue what postpartum depression was, what to do about it. The pediatrician didn't really, he just said, we'll take her back to her OB. So part of what Postpartum Resource Group does to advocate is trying to take the stigma away from it. Every single one of us who works there has struggled with a postpartum mood affective disorder of one kind or the other. So you know you're getting someone who has been there, who will not judge, who will loved what was said yesterday about coming from the point of strength. Like, you are incredibly strong, and you are doing this when your whole body is telling you you can't do this, and you can. And so we come in, and with my bereavement work as well, it's like, we're going to figure this out together, and it will get better. And that's something we say a lot, like, it will get better, we promise. But part of what we do advocating is I might be sitting next to a mom when she calls her doctor to say this medication isn't working because she's not feeling heard by her provider that, no, Prozac doesn't work for me. Well, yes, it does. It works for no, it does not. So then we might have a practice conversation before she calls her provider. Or I have gone to appointments with moms, not to be the one speaking, just to be a support. We will come up with questions together ahead of an appointment. I will help her go through a list of the counselors and tell her, you might not click with the first one, so let's try the next one. Empowering them, like, you can advocate for yourself, and when you don't feel like you can, we can give you tools to do it, and even be a physical person holding your hand next to you as you do. So that is a lot of what we do to advocate. And then we try to bring some of our moms who have graduated back around to share, this is the space I'm in now, and it was worth it. And it's worth it to be a pain in the butt. I hope my kids don't hear that. Pain in the booty. To some providers that aren't listening. And part of advocacy, too, is educating the providers. Like, hey, there's this new combination of medications that's really working for anxiety. There's this new therapy out for postpartum rage that they might not even know about. So that's a big part of it.
I think I kind of lost the train of the question there, but what these guys said is really truly wonderful, and so I can't really add too much to that. Other than advocacy, I think in our program means that, especially in the home visiting program, is that each family is unique and has unique needs, and so we try to tailor whatever we're doing with intention to each family and how they need resources, how they need advocacy, how they need support. And I would also add, on a personal level, when I'm doing work with a family, especially a birthing family, I think about how my first birth affected me and how I wish that I could have been supported in that process instead of feeling like a little leaf that was floating along this river with everybody in the room focused on everything except for me, basically, except for when they wanted to touch me in places where I didn't really want to be touched. And so I think about that experience, and when I walk into the room, into the birthing room, I think about just being there for the mom, mothering the mother, or, like Cerise said, also supporting the birth partner if that's how things are working out. But that's where I'm at.
Thank you. I love the imagery of the leaf in the river. That's going to stick. So to round out, I want to ask Cerise to talk a little bit more about the Doula Collaborative, and then I'm going to ask Amy Stiffarm to come up and talk about another doula group, the Indigenous Doulas group, and then we'll move into some questions. I know I saw some hands up, and I wasn't a very good facilitator and make that clear at the end, but we're going to get there, okay? So yesterday, I think many of you probably saw the poster session that Sherry wave. She had this up in the poster session yesterday, so maybe you saw some of this. But Cerise, if you could just talk a little bit about what the Doula Collaborative is and how people can engage with that, that would be lovely.
Yes.
Oh, you're getting your slide.
Absolutely. Sorry,
Yeah.
I was just like pulling up some notes so I make sure that like the details are right. And I'll say I believe on the HUVA we have a couple of handouts about the Doula Collaborative. So basically anything I say right now, you can go and look up and be like, wait, I didn't hear that from her. And how to get in touch with us too. So the Montana Doula Collaborative is a statewide doula-led organization. We were started in 2022 and sort of came on in the last year and a half. And what we exist for is to advance opportunities for doulas and for families in Montana. And so we're working to provide supports to Montana doulas to develop and sustain their doula practice. And we are also working toward reimbursement, third-party reimbursement in Montana. And I don't know how much you want me to say about this. Do you have specific questions?
I think that's a good enough teaser. And
Okay.
if you do, I do want Sherry, raise your hand, Sherry. And then who else is like working within the Doula Collaborative space? Kat, people, great. Like, this is a welcoming, open group, and y'all can jump in. Thank you. I was side-eye. And so thinking about that as like a place to engage, if this is something that you as a doula, or if you're an interested stakeholder as well. We've got a couple of different folks that are, not providing that kind of care that are coming to those meetings regularly. And I want to ask.
Oh, no, but let me say that. Thank you.
Okay,
Amy.
there you go.
Yeah, I was just going to say, get involved with us, connect with us. You can go to our website, montanadoulacollaborative.org. There's a survey. If you are a doula, think of yourself as a doula, have trained as a doula. Any part of you identifies as a doula, please, you can take the survey. We have monthly meetings as a collaborative every second Thursday at 9:30 a.m. That's on Google Meet, so anyone anywhere in the state can join us. Or you can contact us and get news and updates.
Woohoo! Yeah.
Yeah, and so similar at HMHB through the Native American initiatives, we've been hosting, I want to say Indigenous Doula Network, because that's what the posters have been saying, but we're shifting to calling ourselves more Indigenous Birth Worker. So Indigenous Birth Worker Network is probably what the flyers will start to say. And we had a great conversation. So there are, a lot of us who do participate in the Montana Doula Collaborative and whatnot. It's just that we also have our own separate space to talk specifically about Indigenous communities. Can I get the Indigenous birth workers in the room to stand up, actually? Shanalia, Audrey, Audie, in the back. Yeah, so we host monthly, just like support calls, really, because while this role has always been present in our communities and in our cultural practices, it's very, some of us are very, very new to it, so being able to support each other and run ideas back and forth, and really, none of us are paid either. Some of us are in roles now where their employer is paying them to do some stuff, but so we're very kind of new in Montana as compared to other states like Washington and Minnesota that have really sustainable Indigenous birth worker programs. So that's us. If anyone is interested or wants to let someone they know about our calls, just get a hold of us at HMHB, get a hold of me. My email's on the website, and we'll make sure that they're included on the calls. Keep an eye out on social media. I usually have Lauren, our comms person, post about it. So yeah, and I also briefly just wanted to let Pam talk a little bit about the peer support. Yeah, the recovery doulas.
Thanks so much, Amy. I'm an opportunist. I'm like, and let me tell you about this too. A lot of you may know, and I said a little bit yesterday, but I actually work for One Health, which is an FQHC in Eastern Montana. But one of the things that we're doing under our lovely, wonderful grant that's under my buddy Nikki Campbell at DPHHS is to create, upgrade our what we're calling peer recovery doula certification. We have been providing this for a couple of years, but we just now did a kind of a big professional upgrade. And we're starting our next cohort tomorrow, actually right here at the hotel. If anyone wants to stick around, we have 2 more slots. But the focus here is a little bit different. It's, again, inviting people that have lived experience, either with substance use, mental health issues, including PMADs, perinatal, mood, anxiety, psychosis issues, to bring that lived experience to this work. So our certification will help folks to be full spectrum doulas, but also provide a little bit extra education around the behavioral health recovery piece. And it's just really exciting, and also just another way, like you were saying, Stephanie, like CHWs, right? Like one of the reasons that we have paired these 2 roles is, for one thing, they look very, very similar, right? Peer support specialists are advocates. They work alongside others in whatever role in their recovery. But also, at this point in Montana, Medicaid does reimburse that, so it's a funding stream that we can tap into. And I just found out a very exciting piece of news, so I'm going to share it with you all. It has to do with Indigenous doulas as well, because we're all working very closely together, which is awesome. We partnered with MSU. We just found out they got the grant to layer, right? To layer some paid apprenticeships and also scholarships to get both trained as recovery doulas and certified behavioral health peer support specialists in our program, and providing some pretty nice stipends for folks. Like I think it's a $5,000 stipend for completion of our certification, another $5,000 stipend for an apprenticeship, and we are focusing on Indigenous doulas for this piece of the work. So if anyone's interested in that, like I literally just got the email and I couldn't be more tickled, so I wanted to share that with you.
Woo! That was awesome. And I hope that, this was not meant to be a completely comprehensive conversation. I don't feel like I need to make the case here, so we didn't spend a lot of time on evidence, behind this. But what I do hope this does is build connection and continue to circle us back into one another, right? As this workforce is developing in the state, we have huge investments, like what Pam is talking about. The Maternal Health Innovations Grant is going to have some investment in doula workforce. We've got the big mo right now. And so thinking about how we make sure we're centering the voices of people doing this work already in a variety of different communities and ways and places is very, very important. So I hope that this conversation is a catalyst and not necessarily a checkbox in all your work, because we all have some role to play in integrating and advancing this care, even if we're not providing that care ourselves. So I want to give a moment to do a big round of applause for all of our folks here and for people that came here. And we've got about 4 minutes, so questions. Did folks have questions? You went up first.
How many points do you have at one time? How do you make sure you don't go into the labor?
Just get into the logistics.
Right. I have so much power as a doula. So I'll start. As a general framework, will take 4 clients with due dates in a month period, so the calendar month. I can't guarantee that they don't have their babies at the same time. Next week I'm celebrating the birthday of 2 babies who were born on the same day, and I made it to both their births. And that's not a rare thing. If you look around doulas who've been practicing, we've all done things like that. And also to say it takes a village to build a doula, I have a really good network of backup support too, in case things happen, and my clients are always aware that I have backup in case that happens, and it's rare.
We don't really have that issue because we work with the moms after, so. Hard part's been done.
Well, with three of us, we can back each other up, so that's nice. And then I've also collaborated with one of the community health workers in Missoula, because I'm actually in Missoula right now, staying there. And so she asked me if I would attend one of her births that she wasn't able to do over the Christmas break. So collaboration, I think, is key in having a network. So that's where the Doula Collaborative comes in too. It's kind of cool. Well, with our home visiting program, that kind of helps us segue into finding clients. And then I think I said too, we reach out on social media with little blurbs every once in a while. Hey, we have doulas. This is what doulas do. We have WIC in our office, so she refers clients to us, and then childhood immunizations helps. And then Laura Acker, she's our go-getter in the group. She goes around to obstetrician offices and puts up posters and takes food for the nurses and tells people about us, and that helps too. And also, we also talk to people at the hospital too. We go up to OBGYN and say, do you know about us? Because here we are, so.
So we try to schedule, like, during office's lunchtime. Can we come in during lunch, provide some snacks, and just talk to you about what our program does? That's a big part of it. Obviously, posters are a big part of it. We do a bunch of other stuff. I'm not great at networking, so I'm kind of in the same spot with the bereavement is now what bereavement doula is called. With the bereavement doula aspect of it, as far as trying to get the word out there. So we're trying to go into offices. It helps that our founder is one of the main midwives in the entire area. We also have water bottles that are put in every single postpartum labor room in the 2 birthing hospitals in the valley that have our logo, that have our QR code. So every birthing person gets a water bottle with that. And we go to community events as well. So if there's an Easter egg hunt that the community is doing, we will have a table there. So just trying to, anyone who will let us come talk about it, we will come talk about it. But it's a lot of feet on the ground hours to build it up to the point where it's just, oh yeah, haven't you heard of them before? So does that help at all? Somewhat.
I'll give you a lot of encouragement. It's hard. It's a perennial doula starting out mountain to climb, and I'd be happy to talk to anybody just to listen and talk about it too. Like coming to think, like now I know you're in Havre. Like that's really awesome because we all know, like there's someone we can get in touch with who's in Havre. So this is all, you're already doing it, right? From my perspective, like it has taken, and I think this is having the ability and the time and the things that support doing volunteer work in the community, or making contact with providers, or making contact with the pregnant or parents in your community, in some way. Sometimes that's a little bit easier to be on social media and connect with people, so at least parents, people who might be pregnant, will know that there's someone like you out there in the community. That's not the same as getting referrals from agencies, but the more you're present, the more people hear about you too. So I would say being present and offering yourself as someone who's present does a lot as well.